Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Poet Speaks podcast. Now, our next guest is a Nigerian poet, model, digital creator, and recording artist whose work explores psychology, spirituality, and romance. Her works have graced African creators platforms such as the Aké Festival, LIPFEST, KABAFEST, BellaNaija, and Drummr Africa. She's also known for her commission work with NGOs and brands across Nigeria. Her debut single, Sex is a Kind of Death, was released in February of 2024. Please welcome to the Poet Speaks podcast, Moyosolaoluwa Olowokure. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I want you to go ahead and say your name properly for the folks to hear and enjoy and delve in. So please do.
Okay. My name is Moyosola Olowokure.
Awesome. So how are you doing today? Tell us what part in the world are we speaking to you from? I'm in New York. Tell me where am I speaking to you from?
Okay, I am speaking from Lagos, Nigeria.
Awesome. Well, you know what? Again, like we were talking beforehand, I'm so excited to have you on the show. I love what you do, and I'm just so curious. We can kind of hit it off with this. Where did you grow up, and how did your childhood? When did poetry kind of come in for you? As I read your bio, you're just so multifaceted in what you do. Tell us a bit about where did poetry find you? Did it find you in childhood? Inside all of the multifaceted things you do, when did writing begin for you?
Okay. Well, I began writing, I think, pretty early. I think as far back as I think 6 or 7, I had been a writer. But that was mainly just to like express myself, or just writing like birthday card notes and things like that. I think that poetry, in the sense of like spoken word, and you know just even the concept of being a creative as a poet, was introduced to me in secondary school. So when I was in, I think, SS2, we had this lady called Miss Nabila. She came in with this poetry community, or this literary community called the Purple Silver Community. And she just kind of introduced a lot of us. We were mostly girls in the group, although, I mean, boys were free to join, but we were mostly girls in the group. And she just played this YouTube video of a spoken word duet piece thing, kind of thing, on button poetry. And it blew my mind. And I think it just kind of opened me up to the possibilities of, spoken word and poetry and artistry in general. I think just doing some writing contests after that and some open mics after that just kind of strengthened my appreciation of it and my desire to, write.
Absolutely. Tell me a little bit about so you grew up born and raised in Lagos, right?
No, I was born and raised in Kaduna State, actually.
Okay. Tell me a little bit
Yeah.
about that area, and was it kind of familial ties and connections, being so interested in the arts and writing, was that supported when you were growing up?
Mm. Um, I Kaduna was a very, or is a very chill place. So it's very laid back. It's not as, hustle and bustle, kind of how Lagos is. So I think I appreciate the fact that that environment really allowed me to just, you know, write freely without this kind of like pressure to be, or pressure to be better than anyone else, or, you know, any kind of pressure really. And I think my family has been super supportive from day one. They have been the most supportive people on the planet, driving me to my shows, my open mics, telling me sorry after losing Islam and all of that. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's what's up. For you, I mean, like, do you think that how much do you think, I talk to people on this show all the time about familial support, how much that makes a huge difference in terms of your career, especially stepping into the world as a writer, poet, that type of artistry form. How much do you think that really plays a part in someone's success when they have parents that are really engaged and supportive?
I think that it makes a huge difference, especially in those formative years, because a lot of times when you try something new as a creative, you are not sure if that's what you want to do forever. You're not sure if you're even good at it. And I think what your parents have to say, what your siblings have to say about it really does stick, especially if you have a close relationship with your family. So I think it plays a major role in just the initial like building of self-confidence and, you know, encouragement really. So yeah.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about, so you are a model and recording artist. Tell us a bit how just those are such different disciplines than just being a poet. How have those kind of, do those things fuel your poetry and your work as a writer, or do you think it's just you look at those as two separate avenues and muses for you?
I think they're pretty separate, to be honest. I'd say they're pretty separate because modeling has been something I've been interested in more like seriously for I think a longer time than poetry, right? So I used to model for like brands and all these like just crazy creative shoots, right? Since I was in like junior secondary school, so like 13, 12. And it was just an avenue for me to really like build my confidence, just be comfortable in my own skin. And I just love cameras. Like I look so good on camera. I love cameras. So I guess that was that for modeling. I would say it's very separate from poetry, right? Yeah, it's very separate. I don't think they really interact so much. I guess because modeling helped build my self-confidence, my poetry didn't really have to suffer that initial, building stage of, oh, what do I look like on stage? Because I just kind of got that confidence already. Then for the recording artist aspect, that is pretty recent. Like you said, I just released my first single in February. So I don't really know what my identity is in that space exactly. I know it's built on, poetry and music and just the meeting point between those two elements and other genres, but I'm still figuring that out. So yes, I would say being a recording artist and being a poet, those two do interact quite often, while modeling is a bit separate. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. Tell us a little bit about maybe some of the inspirations then that you have for your for writing and poetry. What do you find kind of inspirational in the world that, in your reality to really fuel your poems and your poetry?
I think number one is scripture because it's just very intricate and metaphoric. I love metaphors so much. I always say that I feel like God's favorite literary device is the metaphor. So I love scripture a lot. I think I get a lot of inspiration from it.
Mm.
I also get a lot of inspiration from other writers, right? Titi Lokwe, like you mentioned, is one of my major influences. So I was really excited to meet her in Ghana. Who else or what else? I think nature actually does inspire me a lot. So like if I'm traveling or I'm just taking a walk or looking around me, I think that does inspire or trigger some sort of, the flowing of the creative juice and all.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about what your life, day to day must look like. A lot of people, they'll hear this podcast and they'll be like, my goodness, she's a model. She gets to travel for poetry. She is a recording artist. How does someone even finagle write that? Like you couldn't even write a movie character with a better life. Like that is such a life of really creative endeavors and also just really really being seen. What is kind of your day-to-day life like, encompassing all of these forms of art and all these occupations at once?
I really like this question because I feel like this is something that I don't know, people don't really like talking about, or we kind of just like push it aside. So I really like this question. Um, Day to day, what does my life look like? I'm a student, right?
Mm.
I'm currently pursuing a psychology degree, and what that entails is you can see me on the streets of Lagos, literally interviewing people and recording their responses to things in the hot sun with my ID card on my neck and my big book bag. So that is what I can look like on a given day. And like you said, on another given day, I may be on stage with this, brilliant outfit and this powerful voice and this music in the background and all of that. And while I know that that can give such a, Hannah Montana vibe, it's all, I feel like it all kind of works together in a beautiful way, because I get to live just the normal day-to-day experiences of literally, I mean, the average Nigerian girl, I guess, while also just experiencing art and culture in such a rich way, in a way that makes me feel very privileged. So in terms of juggling that, I mean, sometimes one thing has to give for the other. For example, I know that when I started pursuing poetry, like seriously and with all my guts and all my energy, modeling definitely took a back seat, right? At some point in my life, modeling was like the main thing I really wanted to do and I was so in love with. But I became in love with poetry, and modeling kind of went to the back, like I said. And as for school is very important to me. I am serious about my grades like mad. So sometimes I do have to sacrifice the gig to study. Sometimes I do have to say no to the event to be able to catch up on schoolwork. But sometimes, like the Accra trip that I just took, I had to tell my classes bye for like a few days. I mean, I calculated it. I checked the timetable to see if we had any tests or anything, and we didn't. So, I mean, I said bye to those classes, and I do not regret it for 1 second, right? So it's just that give and take, and just learning how to draw your boundaries at certain times, and like knowing how to balance it all out. Yeah, all by the grace of God, anyway.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, and like you said, it was such a good question, but I think it's something everyone wonders that from the outside looking in, especially when you've had the privilege to be able to travel. Like you said, we talked about beforehand, you were just in Ghana for like a literary festival to do work as a poet. When people see that you're traveling with your art form, I think the outside looking in, everyone does think goals. You know what I mean? Like it's really, you're literally living the life, and then kind of people see the curtain behind the artist. It's a lot, so much, like you said, sacrifice, having to drop some things to do other things. And it's just definitely a life of privilege. And it's also a life of trying to score the right balance and
Absolutely.
taking risks a lot, having a career in
Yeah.
something like poetry. It is a huge, huge risk, I'm sure. Do you feel similar to that? It's a risk always taking really, like you said, you put your foot forward in poetry, so you had to drop some of those gigs with modeling.
Oh yes. Oh yes. I think even just in terms of um I think poetry and school especially, because modeling kind of is less, I would say it's a bit less time intensive, because I can just wake up on a day that I'm free and I've given that day to a shoot, and that's the end of it, right? I don't really have to do so much premeditation or, post production or anything. But for poetry, to write a piece alone has already taken 2 weeks before I memorize it, before I, climb the stage on that day, and then before I post about it, because I have to post about it. I mean, generally speaking, and all of that, it can take a lot.
Yeah, no, there is such a strike of balance that you sometimes have to have, and that sacrifice definitely does come in. But I want to go in, let's talk a little bit about your debut single. Speaking of art and poetry, all kind of those things for you, they really align together. Your debut single, Sex is a Kind of Death. So that is such
Yeah.
a prolific title. I mean, that means so much. I just thinking in my own mind, I just think that means so much. But I want to know, tell us about how that piece came to be, and where the inspiration came to create it.
Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, scripture is a big inspiration for me. So I think just the having a statement that is very layered is something that I love to do when I write and, when I create work. So for Sex is a Kind of Death, the origin story of that was me reading the book of Jeremiah, in which, God was kind of lambasting the children of Israel about how they were being, prostituting themselves before other gods and other idols and all of that. So I just found that as a very interesting thought, just the concept of God likening worship to a sexual act, right? And so I just kind of developed that, or built on that, and decided to write this piece about a person, a woman who has, given herself to people who have hurt her, who have not been able to love her properly. And then finally, she has met someone that she can trust, that is worthy of trust, that is worthy of that lifelong commitment. And she's just going on and on about how she hopes the person takes care of her, and she hopes that this person doesn't, break her heart the way the other people have, and all of that. And while that is romantic in a sense, it's also spiritual, because it's also this kind of storyline about how the human soul can be given to sex and lust and greed and all of that, and it can be damaged. But then at a point, you realize that, oh, maybe God can be, a better fit for my soul, a better lover of my soul. And then, you pursue that relationship instead. And so, Sex is a Kind of Death just talks about how sex is this metaphor, or this representation of death, in the sense of a death to self, which is what Christians commonly, a phrase Christians commonly use to represent what worship is, which is, a death to your own desires, a death to self, basically. So that is kind of that's a very brief overview of my logic and my thinking behind SIAKOD. And while I understand that it might not be so easily grasped, right, on the first listen, I think it's fine, because at the surface level, it's a beautiful message. At the layers under, it's still a beautiful message. And I think I'm happy with that.
For sure, for sure. Tell us a bit about how's that been kind of perceived? Like you live in the country of Nigeria. How has
Yeah.
that been perceived in a country like that, which I guess one could say is maybe a bit conservative in terms of issues with sex publicly, at least, right? But you tell me, as someone that's living there, what has the public perception been of your single?
So it's been a bit interesting. I think that for people who have been following my work for a while, kind of those people were kind of already used to me doing things like that, kind of used to me, playing on biblical concepts, and just having layered meanings and metaphors and all of that. So I think when most people who like really follow my work, when they first saw Sex is a Kind of Death, they probably thought, but what the messages I got anyway were like, what is this girl doing here? Because we know that like there is probably going to be some biblical undertone. There's probably going to be some, scriptural undertone. So that's for those people that did follow my work or have been following my work. And then for people who maybe just came across it randomly, because it was really listened to by a lot more people than I thought, right? A lot more times than I thought. And so I think for people that had never really heard of my work or had never really heard of me, I think they probably thought I was talking about this. There's this French saying, le petit mot, I think that represents, I think that talks about like an orgasm or something. So I guess they thought that that was what the poem was going to be about. So different people had their expectations for it. And then I think for when it came out, a lot of people just took it as that surface level, oh, this romantic story, right? Because I mean, while there were some references, some sexual references, I don't think it was the most graphic. I don't think it was the most graphic or the most, explicit poem that I've done or that is around, right? So I don't think that it caused that much of a stir in that way. Yeah, I think that's basically what the reception has been like.
For sure, for sure. Tell us a bit about, I mean, just the process for you. Like you said, this is a new foray for you, came out February 2024. I mean, how do you feel getting that out to the world just so recently? I mean, how do you feel? I see a big smile on your face already, but how has it felt?
Yeah, it has felt so good, to be very honest. It has felt really good because I have been thinking about this. I have been writing this. I have been tweaking and recording and re-recording for so long. And to just finally have this piece of work that I can just click and play at any time makes me so happy. And I'm just so grateful. And I think the fact that it resonated with so many people really, really increases that. And also the fact that it took so many people to make it. Like, yeah, it was a concept that I came up with in my head, but like the execution of it took at least 30 people, like considering the voices that I had in the background, the music, the visualizer, the music video, whatever. That took a lot of people. So I just think that having so many people come together and believe in my work and create something so beautiful and have it received in a way that I find fitting is just, it's very satisfying, to be very honest.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what are we looking at in terms of the future with music? We're gonna see an album. I mean, what do you where do you plan, what are your plans for after dropping your debut single?
Yeah. So I have just released, I think 2 days ago, I just released a second single, We Will Not Stop. And on that track, I featured my brother, who's a rapper, an amazing rapper. And we just kind of did this more up because SIAKOD was very melancholic and was very slow and sultry. I think We Will Not Stop had more of like an anthem, bop vibe. And it was just interesting to like have that. I wouldn't say it was a pivot per se, but just to have that, variation, I guess, in my sound. So in terms of the future now, definitely you're going to see an album. You're going to get an album. I'm hoping to release it this year, but no promises. And the name of the album is Dirt and Divinity. So that is what is on my t-shirt. I'm not sure if it's backward or if it's showing the right way.
It's perfectly.
But the name, but the name of the album is Dirt and Divinity. And it's going to be this beautiful experience of metaphors, of music, of poetry, and I really cannot wait to share it with you. Yeah.
Okay, everyone. So go ahead, check out Dirt and Divinity. Love the work she is up to and doing. All right. So dropped a lot of gems, gave us a lot of insight so far. So please do tell us. We have the last question. We ask every poet on the Poet Speaks podcast. Tell me, why do you need to get your words out?
Ooh. Okay. That's a good question. Why do I need to get my words out? Because God gave me these words. And there's a lot of work that they have to do.
Absolutely. Okay. We love that. God gave her these words. There's a lot of work we need to do. All right. Well, thank you so much. You know what? Before we finally do wrap up, please do drop your socials, drop a website, Instagram link, TikTok, wherever you kind of put your stuff out there for the folks to know. And then finally tell us what's next for you for the rest of 2024.
Okay. So I think on all handles I am Moyosolaoluwa. So that's Moyosolaoluwokure. So that's on all platforms. Yeah, you should find me there. Also stream my music, please. That is very important to me. And what is up for 2024? I have tagged 2024 as my year of bravery. So you're going to see a lot of experimentation, a lot of weird stuff, a lot of wild stuff. So yeah.
Absolutely. Let's go. All right. Well, Dirt and Divinity, everyone, check that out. All of her socials will be down the description link, no matter where you check out this podcast. Hey, a big thank you for being on the Poet Speaks podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It was really good to meet you.
Absolutely. All right. And everyone, check out the Poet Speaks podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. Again, we're the #1 spoken word poetry podcast in the world. Check us out. All right. Stay tuned, everyone. Bye-bye.